Hello, hello, and welcome to Antiviral number 35. This one is going to be in English, so sorry guys if you don't speak English, but I think it's a good training for all of us. We're going to talk about build, what's next for the tech industry, and I think it's an absolute relevant topic since we are here in UNIT.City, and because I felt like it was not going to be interesting if it was just me, we decided with my good friend Anдрій Комаровський, who is the founder and co-founder and CEO of Sector X, to do it together. André, hello.
Hey, Dom. Good to see you again.
Oh yeah, good to see you. Well, even if we are via Zoom and all that stuff, right? Okay, so we are talking about what's next for the tech industry, and when we decided to prepare this podcast or videocast, yeah, maybe we call it videocast. We decided to structure it in three parts. So first, we're going to talk about the landscape. Okay. What's next, but before we talk about what's next, maybe we can talk about what's happening now. Then we are going to talk about build, because this is the title of this videocast, and build is also the title of a very interesting document produced by Mark Andressen, one of our shared hero. We will come back to that, and that will be a second part. And then we will talk about, what's next, and especially with a focus on acceleration, because this is what Sector X is doing, and we believe that this is a good way to support our tech ecosystem, is to accelerate that tech ecosystem. But maybe we can start with actually a short video of someone who came to UNIT.City when it was still possible to travel. He came, actually last fall. Is one of my personal hero. I think he's a personal hero of a lot of people, actually. It's Jack Ma, the founder and CEO of Alibaba, and I think he has a few very interesting messages. So especially the first one you will see. So let's watch that first video. Let's watch the video.
Don't believe in there are so many experts. There's only expert of yesterday. There's no expert tomorrow. You are the expert of self.
Mr. Ma, welcome to UNIT.City.
First, I think when I walk into this UNIT.City, I think it's very, very interesting experience. It is a very innovative where you put all the smart people together. So when you have a group of people like this, it is a great chance. Education should teach people innovative, creative, constructive that robots, AI can never do. And you guys, as entrepreneurs, we can do things the machine cannot do. Machine can do things like a professional manager, but we are entrepreneurs.
Okay, André. Jack Ma is saying something that is very interesting. There is no experts of yesterday. There's only experts of tomorrow. That is kind of an interesting way. But what do you think actually about those messages from Jack Ma? Do you think he's an optimist guy? Do you think what do you think?
Well, I do think that billionaires tend to be optimists, really, if you think about it this way. And it's kind of hard for me personally to take their advice like super seriously, if you know what I mean. Because if you're up here, like very up here, like top of the mountain, top of the world, and you're giving advice to all the regular people out there, that's kind of, I don't know. I'm not sure if he can relate to what's going on in the world, but I do think that people like Jack Ma do have something to say to the world, something to teach us. But I wouldn't take everything for granted like, very seriously. I would just listen, but have my personal judgment on what relates to me, to my country, to my region, to my situation, to my market, and stuff like that. But anyways, it is really important that people like Jack Ma come over to countries like Ukraine, which kind of means that they notice us, they think that there is something in here. I'm not sure that they understand the local context, but just having people like Jack here on this soil kind of projects an assurance or some hope that everything will be better than it is today.
So, what is your understanding of the landscape today? I mean, what is going on, and what is going on in Ukraine right now in the tech industry? In your point of view as, once again, the co-founder and the CEO of Sector X, which is probably the largest accelerator platform in Ukraine today. You have a really strong knowledge of startup, and you see a lot of them every day. Where are we today in Ukraine?
That's a super tough question to answer.
I know.
Tech is huge. Tech is huge, but I can probably talk about startups. I can probably talk about some innovations here and there. I can probably talk about trends, but tech as a whole, I don't know. But it's not Israel, it's not even Finland. I would love to see it getting better. I don't know.
Do you see a lot of startup disappearing? Do you see a lot of startups struggling right now?
I think that bad times for startups are definitely coming, like definitely 100%. But it's still not a lot of time passed since the quarantine started, and I personally don't see a lot of startups collapsing, but they will definitely. But it all comes down to whether the local ecosystem, the local market, has enough startups to build a strong business on them or with them. In terms of sheer number of startups, Ukraine is not that bad, but in terms of medium to high quality startups, it's not good. Let's be honest, it's really not good. And some cases that I see here and there, and I've been coming to Ukraine on a fairly regular basis, starting 8 or 10 years ago, and I'm here now. I've been in Ukraine for the past 2 years, been living here since 2018. And I see a lot of startups, but in terms of quality, not good.
What
Not good.
what do you tell entrepreneurs right now who come to you and who ask for advice? And I will try to answer the same question, but from a very different angle. But what do you tell them? Like, let's imagine I'm a resident of UNIT.City. I'm the CEO of a tech startup. I come to you for advice. What can you tell me? I mean, everybody's at home. It's a quarantine. What do you say?
The most common answer that I give is, are you guys working on something important? Are you doing something that matters? Are you solving a problem that is huge, that is big, that is meaningful? Or are you building some local copycat? Or are you trying to earn a living? Are you trying to make $1,000 a month? Are you trying to I don't know, are you trying to survive? if you're trying to survive simply, then you're probably not on the right track. Because startups are not about survival. Startups are about doing something that really matters, that transcends, that is big enough to grow, to matter to a lot of people. And this is what I usually say, because 99% of people who I meet on a regular basis are not doing anything like hugely important, hugely meaningful. They're doing something, but earning a living with what these guys do is okay, and not everybody has to be Zuckerberg, but it all comes down to whether there is a market for these things, and more often than not, there's no market, unfortunately.
It's funny because in Silicon Valley, that type of business, we don't have the potential to scale exponentially, which should be a real startup like that. Potential to scale. We call them lifestyle business. It's cool. You're gonna make a living. It's just a good lifestyle business. It doesn't really matter.
Absolutely.
I mean, you're super young. I'm not anymore. But do you remember 2000? I mean, you were a kid, right, in 2000?
Not exactly. In 2000. Let me say.
Tech bubble. The tech
in
bubble.
2000, I was in my 20s. I was in my 20s.
Okay.
Not that young. Well, relatively young, of course. And I do
Were you
remember
already
the
in
tech bubble.
tech? You were already in tech?
No, in 2000, no. I was into regular business, offline stuff. But I always was very curious about what was going on in the Valley, what was going in the tech industry. So I was pretty well aware of what was happening in the United States at that time.
So I was in tech at that time because I'm a little bit older than you, and I remember I was about to move to San Francisco, and so it's a tech bubble, and my job was basically to kill startup. It was horrible. I was working in a strategy consulting firm, and basically I was hired by client just to kill their internet portfolio, kill their investment, kill everything, because I think. And I really remember, well, the market was not there. The number of people connected to internet was low. People were starting e-commerce, but it was not very well working. And it's interesting because it's at that period that actually Amazon started. Well, Amazon started in 1994, but it's at that period that Jack Ma started Alibaba in 1999. And when Jack Ma came to us, he said, well, when I started Alibaba in China, there was no good internet connection or no internet connection at all. There was no online payment. There was no delivery. E-commerce was inexistent. And I started Alibaba because I had the vision. I think that the crisis we see today is very different from that tech bubble that was really bad in the Valley. I mean, people were losing tons of jobs. It was bad for tech. People are losing tons of jobs today in Silicon Valley as well. I mean, Airbnb just announced 25% of the company, almost 2,000 people lost their job. Uber is doing the same thing. Lyft is doing the same thing. So it's really bad. And the reaction usually in American companies is you let people go, which is not, I hope, too much what we're trying to do here, because this is your most valuable asset, people, especially in tech. But I don't think for the tech industry that this crisis is going to be that bad. And I feel like a lot of opportunities are going to arrive. And we're going to talk about this in a second. But is it your feeling as well? Do you think it's as bad as 2008 or 2000? Or do you think opportunities are going to arrive pretty soon?
Well, good question. Really good question. I think that there will be two scenarios as far as startups. Startups who cater to pre-COVID, pre-crisis consumer patterns, consumer behavior will certainly die. At least most of them will die. But new startups will emerge who capitalize on the new patterns, on the new types of consumer behavior. To what degree these two trends will, sort of collaborate or intertwine, I have no idea. But we will definitely see new startups emerging. We will definitely see a lot of startups dying. As far as opportunities, just opportunities, they are everywhere. But I think that there are more opportunities when the market is growing, and there are less opportunities when the market is stagnating or when the market is plunging. I hear pretty often when people say, "Hey, there are a lot of opportunities on when there is a crisis." I don't really think that this relates to the majority of entrepreneurs and to the majority of industries. Of course, someone will always benefit when there is war, of course.
Yeah.
But when there is war, 95% of the industries out there and probably 99% of people suffer at times of war. So crisis is kind of a word for me, because you're fighting for survival. And of course, there are less opportunities to experiment. There are less opportunities to iterate. There are less opportunities for less margin for failure. But some companies will emerge and some companies thrive when there is war. It's okay. But I do believe that there are much more opportunities when the market is growing. So that's the bottom line for I might sound a bit pessimistic, but I'd like to call it realism. But I also do like to synchronize my understanding with my vision with reality, maybe a bit more often than what people are used to doing. So dreaming is good, but when you synchronize your dreams with harsh reality, that bears fruit.
Let's talk about still that reality and talk about investment, because if you have a startup today, if you need to raise money, is it still an option, not an option? I mean, the UVCA, which is the Ukrainian Association of VC Industry, published a really interesting study just a few weeks ago on 2019. And 2019 was a really good year in Ukraine if you were in the tech industry to raise money. There was an increasing number of startups who raised money for bigger deals. The deal flow was better. There were also a few good exits. We have a few unicorns like Grammarly who were able to raise more money. I mean, really, 2019 in Ukraine was a pretty good year, a record year for Ukraine. But if you're a startup today and you need to raise money, do you think it's still possible? Do you think what is your recommendation? What is your vision on that?
Pretty standard, I'd say. Fundraising is pretty tough, no matter the time. But
yes,
this time it's definitely gonna be way harder. But at the very same time, if you're working on something meaningful, if your company is in I don't know, is in sync with reality, with the market, then there is a chance of that you go out there and fundraise. The terms might be worse. I'd say it may take you longer, but there is always money out there, no matter what. There is always money, and this money is looking for opportunities. That's as simple as that. Hey, yeah, it's like people's needs never change, like never, and crisis just suppress some of them and highlight the others. But needs never change, and people will always be willing to and wanting to to feed, to eat,
Yeah, of course.
to have a
The
home.
house.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes.
Okay, I suggest we move to the second part, which is okay. We describe a pretty rough and difficult environment. It's tough, guys. I mean, it's clear. But how are we going to exit from that? And so, Andreessen, and for those of you who don't know Mark Andreessen, I'm gonna tell you a little bit about him because he is one of my personal hero. I know, Andre, you don't like to impersonate heroes. You think heroes should be distributed, and it's a more global thing.
Kind
But
of.
I have I have a few personal hero, and Mark Andreessen is one of them. So the guy is basically the guy who created the first web browser, Netscape, when he was very young, I think 18 or 19. He sold it when he was in his very early 20s, became extremely rich at that time, and then he decided to create an investment fund called Andreessen Horowitz with his co-founder Ben Andreessen, and Mark is extremely smart in the way he works with startup. He's the first one who decided to keep the founders within the company. I mean, there was a big trend in the year 2000, says, okay, founders are young, they're inexperimented, we're going to hire external CEOs and external staff, seasoned people. And in fact, Mark Andreessen said, no, we have to keep the people who have the vision, who have the passion, who carry the product, and then build really something that is very meaningful in Silicon Valley. And he came up very early on with that concept that software is eating the world, which is that idea that software is becoming the interface between the end user and the world. And we saw clearly that with Uber and transportation, Airbnb and hotel industry. But in fact, we're starting to see that with everything. And very recently, a few weeks ago, he came up with a thesis, a short document called Built. And he says, guys, we have the technology and we didn't use it to build. And it's our fault, but we could have built better system to protect ourselves from this virus. And we knew this virus was coming, and we didn't build hospitals, we didn't build masks, we didn't build enough ventilators, we didn't build but it's like, but in general, we didn't build what we could have built with all that technology. And basically he's saying, well, what's next is, guys, now it's time to build. And we started, you and me, having a little conversation on Facebook. So if you are friends on Facebook, you can start following that conversation on what do we think about this. So what do you think about Andreessen paper or argument?
Well, first of all, I gotta thank you for sharing the link to Mark's article, because I discovered it on your Facebook, and then that's where I learned about it. Well, first of all, this is an oversimplification for me. I mean, what Mark wrote about, just build, and we are set. It's like an easy to swallow pill, like a fast food solution, like we build, like we eat, like we train from here on, and it will solve all our needs. And it's it can be a solution to all the problems out there, to the problems in education, in transportation, in manufacturing, in healthcare, in government relations. You can't just build to solve a ton of other problems. And I do not believe in silver bullets. I'm sure you know what it is, like silver bullets, a one-stop shop solution to, like, you take the pill and you're all set. So that's why I'm kind of skeptical about this like solution of building. But it of course it does matter. It relates more to some problems, but it is totally relevant to others, like education. It doesn't matter how many Harvard or Yale or Princeton or Stanford campuses you build. You can't multiply the level of education that Harvard provides, because it's not about buildings. It's about systems and design and professors and that spirit of and that environment. But it's not about, it's about buildings, just buildings. Likewise, you can't increase or drive up the level of healthcare in the United States just by building more hospitals, because you will need more doctors. You will need to totally redesign, revamp the healthcare system. But as far as manufacturing, that totally might be the case, because global supply chains, everybody saw that because of this crisis, because of the lockdown, global lockdown, it doesn't work. You need to have local manufacturing. You need to have a supply chain that is more local, that that is in Massachusetts, that's in Florida, that's in Colorado, if you're talking about the United States. But hey, China cannot provide the whole world. Of course, there should be trade-offs. I mean, if you have China, then your citizens enjoy low prices on virtually everything. But if China says, hey guys, you just back off, we're not doing business with you anymore, then I guess you are in trouble. But if you do make a conscious decision to trade off higher prices, higher consumer prices for the security of manufacturing, so that you would be dealing with local suppliers, that might be the answer. And in this regard, building local factories is good.
Well, I would like to come back to education, because at one point, and I think that's one of the things he's also trying to say, you mentioned, and I totally agree with you, the fact that it's not because we're going to build a bigger Harvard that we're going to solve the problem of education. And of course, I totally agree with you. However, what if having a physical building called Harvard was just in fact a stupid idea? What if in today's world, and I think because we're all at home and Zooming all over the place, Harvard education became something available for 20,000 people, 30,000 people, 1 million people. And we were building a system that is, education system that is not linked to a physical place, but that is just linked to the excellence of education. Don't you think we could educate way more people if Harvard was available for everybody? I mean, they're probably not going to be happy because they're not going to have their tuition fees and all that stuff. But hey, you know what? Maybe it's too much of the old world. Maybe the new world is like that. No?
If we expand the term build way, like why make it wider and higher and fatter, then of course yes. But then we should be asking ourselves the question: if what are the, say, top 100 most pressing problems in today's societies? What should humankind be working on? And if by the term build we mean redesigning everything, or humankind progress in general, then of course yes. But we'll have to expand the term by like tenfold, 100-fold.
Well, why not?
Of course. Yeah, of course.
And maybe that's what we should do.
We totally should do that, like totally redesigning how our supply chains work, totally redesigning how our education system works, totally redesigning how healthcare works, and totally redesigning how innovations work. And hey, accelerators, like as a very very niche example. Accelerators have been around for what, 15 years, 20 years, well, something like that. And these structures are supposed to be on the edge of innovation, but they haven't changed a bit since the first acceleration program emerged in the late 90s or in the very early 2000s. And that's a shame. That's really a shame. I mean, accelerators keep talking about innovations, but their programs haven't changed a single bit. They still work in cohorts or batches. They still hand out money. They still like pick founders. They connect them with investors, and that's, I don't know, that's pretty much it. Shouldn't accelerators or innovation systems be also revamped or redesigned to drive the humankind forward?
It's interesting. So let's move to that part, because I think it's a very interesting part. I remember recently reading a short piece by a guy I like, a French guy who lives in London, Nicolas Collin, about YC, Y Combinator, which is in fact the first accelerator that was started right after the internet bubble in the years 2000, and that was a program. That acceleration program was one of the idea to solve the crisis. It's like, oh, we have all those startup and all those talented people. Why don't we bring them together and create an acceleration program? And in many ways, it was the answer to a crisis 20 years ago. And I'm kind of wondering what is the form of structure, what type of structure can help entrepreneurs in this time of a crisis. What are the next, and maybe we need to reinvent that as well. What do you think, and what would you do to reinvent acceleration? Because I think it's still a good answer, but I agree with you, they've not been able to reinvent themselves.
Well. If I only knew how to totally redesign the structure of accelerators, of how accelerators work, I would be doing that right now. But right now, what we do at SectorX, for example, we're redesigning minor things, minor formats. We're revamping here and there. We're not overhauling the system in general. That's a very general answer. I realize that, but I do believe that every accelerator's success depends on the quality of its pipeline, and the quality of pipeline is the number one contributing factor to accelerator's success. No matter the program, no matter who you connect your startups with, it might be IBM or Boeing or Intel or whoever, but if you have bad founders on board, you will fail. If you have the best program in the world, but you have bad founders, you will fail. So it's about the quality of people that come to you. And then if you offer them a good program, access to capital, access to clients, access to investors, access to community, access to experts and mentors, and blah blah blah, then you're on the way to success. But I also think that accelerators should be like Harvard in a way, more online based, more data driven, more risky in a way, because you have Y Combinator, and these guys do 2 cohorts, 2 batches a year, and the opportunity, I mean, your chance of getting accepted into YC is minuscule. It's like Harvard, or even worse.
Even harder, yeah.
Yeah, even harder. So it should be online based, very distributed, very data driven, like AI infused machine learning, like benefiting, and Should be. We're working on it. We're not
Let's.
still there.
I can't wait to see what Sector X is going to become. I mean, you've already made a lot of changes, like for example, you don't have batches anymore, and all those things that are actually, I think, really interesting. Let's listen to our second video. It's Jack Ma again, because he has, I think, some ideas that are actually interesting. He's talking about the zoo. He's talking about the idea of building company to last, and he's talking about being careful with investors. So maybe we can listen to the video of Jack Ma.
Sure.
Silicon Valley, good innovation, but there's one thing that I hope Ukraine young people think about it. I love Silicon Valley's innovation, but I don't like the way they build companies to sell. We have to build company to last. When you build company to last, your company will be different. A lot of people build to sell, and it becomes the culture. And I hope when you start a company, think about what's the value of the company that can bring to the others. If you build up a restaurant, how can you make your customer enjoy the food? And I think what your question is, in the past 20 years, I spent a lot of time with my two groups of people. First, my own team. I tell them what I worry, I tell them what I believe, and I tell them what I see the opportunity, I tell them what I see the risk. But I spend most of the time talking to the customers. Most people spend a lot of time on investors. Don't spend too much time on investors. Investors, they will say, I'm a long-term investor. I tell you, there's no long-term investors. A good investor should not be long-term, because that's not his money. Trust your people, trust the customers, listen to them. Right? If you have a lot of, it's easy to manage a group of stupid people. It's difficult to manage smart people. In this world, I want to make Alibaba a zoo, not a farm. Right? You don't want a farm of chickens, a farm of pigs, all the same. You want different kind of animals in a company. So what we want to do is not discipline your people. It's to build up a culture that is innovative people, inspire people. So the community we build up is always about it's not about what we think. What we think our people need is what we find the people need. And then we build the culture, we build up the infrastructure. So I think it's all about people. If your people not improved, if your people not developed, don't think your products will be developed and improved. So this is what I believe, and this is what we would do.
Okay, so two different sets of ideas here. People and that idea of community and the zoo and culture, and then another idea of building companies to last and to work with investors. Let's start with the companies and his comment on, in Silicon Valley, what I don't like is people are trying to build companies that are very short term. They want to make them big. They want to sell them, make big bucks, move on. And your idea is in fact, I think, kind of a mix of those two. It's like, if I understand you correctly, you're saying, no, guys, you have to make big companies with big ideas. Well, not necessarily big in terms of people, but in terms of what you want to achieve, and kind of to last. What do you think of that startup ecosystem of Silicon Valley and startup ecosystem elsewhere, where people kind of try to build company to last?
Full. It's on the one hand, it's conventional wisdom. Of course, if if you're building a company to last, you can last longer, you can take more, you can tolerate way more, because you're doing it for a greater purpose, for your dream, not just for money. You cannot take a lot in exchange for just money, because there will be a point, a moment in your life, maybe in half a year, maybe in a year, maybe in 5 years, depends on how much money you're getting paid or how much you're projecting to be making with that company. But there will definitely be a point when you collapse, just because you can't take this anymore, this shit anymore. And building a startup is kind of hard. But if you're building a company to last, if you're like following your dream, no matter how like trivial that sounds, then you can last forever, maybe, at least physically and like psychologically, emotionally. Yes. But on the other hand, different types of companies exist. Well, there is a whole lot of them, all very different. And from what I see, 80%, if not more, of all the companies out there are built to earn money, to make money, no matter what their shareholders say, no matter what their management says. But these companies are built to make money, and it's okay. I mean, why not? I mean, money is okay. It might not be as sexy as following your dream, but it's okay. Apple was probably built to earn, to follow your dream. It was built to last. Okay, but I don't know. Was some Nokia?
But don't you feel that, and I mean, I feel that, but maybe I'm wrong, but that there is a shift, and actually this crisis is also, for many people who are sitting at home, a good moment to reflect on themselves and on their true purpose and what they want to do. I mean, I have a lot of my friends who are changing careers because they want to do something more meaningful. But don't you feel that even in the tech industry, there is a shift? I mean, I'm thinking, for example, of people saying, well, maybe Facebook is not such a nice and good company. Maybe Google is not such a nice and good company. To use tech for a bigger and a higher purpose. And I kind of feel that there is that shift in maybe the younger generation of entrepreneurs who are willing to build something that is more meaningful, that is stronger, that is not just for money. But I don't know. Is it not what you see?
No, Dom, I totally agree with you, and I've been feeling this shift for the past several years for sure, and it is there, but it is mostly with younger people, younger generations, and it's. But I think that it has to do with when these people were born, because if you're born into a time of hardship, then you get all you care about is providing for yourself and your family, and certainly you're not the one to blame for wanting to be very down to earth, very pragmatic. But if you are, I don't know, a 20, 30 something year old hipster, and you have never felt a moment of hardship in your life, you've never slept in Central Park in because you didn't have any money, or you have never worked at McDonald's because you had to earn that money, then you might be a bit too romantic, and you might be thinking, hey, I'm going to build a system that will eradicate all poverty out there. But I do believe that the meaning is not somewhere in the outer space. The meaning is within you. You can see meaning, you can find meaning in very little things. I mean, you might be building, I don't know, designing glasses, or walking dogs, or I don't know, sweeping floors, or I don't know, designing PCBs or LEDs, or teaching students. And and all these activities have meaning. I mean, if you think about, okay, yeah, of course, if you're selling selling iPhones, does selling iPhones have meaning? It's just very expensive phones.
But don't you feel that this crisis, being such a crazy big economic crisis, that and we don't see the consequences of it because I unfortunately believe this is just the beginning and we will see the consequences, has the potential of many people are going to lose their job or are losing their job and will have to reinvent themselves, and it has the potential of those crises you mentioned where well, we are after World War II and we have to rebuild a country, or we are after World War I and we have to really rebuild a country. And I think when I look at what I can suspect are going to be the economic impact of this economy, I see about the same thing. I mean, it's a lot of wealth is going to be destroyed, and so we will have to rebuild. And I'm thinking, well, if I have to rebuild, why not rebuild something that is a little bit meaningful and a little bit useful, and not just doing it for the money? But I don't know. What do you think about the second part about culture? About the zoo, about that idea of diversity, of what Jack Ma was saying about all that.
I think that I love this idea. I do. Just love this idea. And I think that culture.
UNIT.City to be a zoo. Everybody loves that. They say, "What, you want to do a zoo? We want giraffe and lions." And I'm like, "No, but I want that." It's so cool.
Absolutely. And I mean, culture and society design, society structure is the number one contributing factor to people's success, to entrepreneurial success. And I'm 100% sure of this thought because, well, take Israel, for example, take Finland, take Sweden, take the United States, take China. All these countries are totally different. But what kind of makes them similar is their culture. But in no way I want to say that the culture of these countries are similar. The cultures are totally different.
Completely different.
But
yes.
what makes these different cultures similar is the way that they enable entrepreneurship. Like take Sweden or Finland, very successful countries. People don't have to worry about almost anything. Healthcare is free, transportation is almost free, education is like super high level, top notch, world class education is free, and people feel safety, people feel security, and they go on and do things. They go on and bet on things. They go on and innovate, and not because their culture is vibrant. No, Sweden is not vibrant. Like Finland is not vibrant in no way. But people are safe there. People feel secure, and they think that they can go out there and try new things, knowing that if they fail, they will not have to feed on rats or pigeons or I don't know, live under the under the bridge, exactly. Or the United States, a lot of opportunities. The culture is very bright, very vibrant. And or Israel, it's not about safety, it's not about security. Prices are super high, like that high. But the culture is so vibrant. Like everybody wants to be entrepreneurial. Everybody wants to launch their startup. And if you are part of that society, it acts on you every second that you spend there, and you just can't resist it. That you convert the way you think, that you convert the way you act and what you do towards entrepreneurship. And that's what makes these totally different cultures similar, is their ability to allow people to innovate, to try new things, to build stuff. And yeah, and Yeah, and that's culture. That's totally culture. That's what he said.
Cool. Yeah, I know. I mean, it's totally what I felt when I was in Silicon Valley. I mean, I love that feeling of everything is and anything is possible. There's kind of no limit, no frontier, no boundaries, and that's what's very special about Silicon Valley. But I think it's something you can work on. I think it's something that could happen, and hopefully will happen. I would like to watch a last video about someone else, an entrepreneur, Andy Baines. Andy worked with Steve Jobs at Apple for almost 10 years. Then he created a company called Nest that he sold to Google. He co-created a company called Nest that he sold to Google. He's now based in London, works a lot with Ukraine. And he was here a few months ago, and we had tons of question for him, but I liked what he said about culture of entrepreneurship, and we're going to listen to him. So it's Andy Baines for our video number 3.
If it isn't hard, it's probably not worth doing. And
if it is not hard, it's probably not worth doing. That's actually one of my mantra. Actually,
Okay.
I think that's one of the reasons why I moved to Ukraine. It was, it's going to be hard and even harder than whatever I think, and so it's probably worth doing. And I get it.
And there's a second end to that principle, which is if there's no mission behind what you're doing, then hard becomes impossible. And so what Nest encapsulated was a couple of things. One is taking on this incredibly slow-moving, stuck in its ways, thermostat industry. And that little thermostat that sits on your wall, is controlling 55% of the annual energy budget for 110 million households, in
the US
in
alone.
the US alone. So the first thing was, taking on an industry that really needed to be taken on, and really jumping. The very first thing that happened to us, was that Honeywell sued us.
Really?
That's how hard. That's how hard this was going to be. We had barely stepped out of the garage on Palo Alto, on Page Mill Road in Palo Alto, and slapped with a lawsuit, from a giant. And so we knew we were on something big. That was almost like a vote of confidence, getting the lawsuit.
Okay, yeah.
The second part of it, which was the mission, kept a team of around 50 people working day and night on this problem that we were going to solve. Was the mission, and the mission was, if we could reduce households' energy consumption just not by getting people to change their behavior, not by getting people to do anything different in their daily comings and goings, but just by having a device on the wall that was smart enough to know whether you were home or whether you were away, stopping you from overheating or overcooling your home, allowing you to control it from your mobile phone. If we could do that, we could potentially remove whole power stations worth of energy off the grid.
So, Andre, what are your thoughts on this, and especially on that idea that if it's not hard, it's probably not worth doing it. What I mean on all this, but especially on this, what is your thought?
It is impossible to agree with this thought, and I absolutely love it, totally love it. I love people who are on a mission. I'm sure you do as well, I'm sure. And these are ultimately these are the people who are worth, dealing with, investing in, collaborating with, and because they have meaning in their life, and they spread this meaning around them. And of course, if you're working on something very easy, very simple, probably it's not that important. That's of course it is. It is true, of course. And if it's like that, if it can be done like that, who needs it? Probably. Like Airbnb was hard enough to pull out. Facebook was hard enough. Apple was hard enough. IBM, General Electric, Ford, like almost every company that I can think of was built on a premise of solving some very, very tough, very hard issues. Of course.
But now that you are in Ukraine and I am in Ukraine and you're doing Sector X, do you see any companies, or do you see any people who have that drive to be on a mission to create something bigger, something? Do you see that, and do you feel that it's possible?
I do, but these people are so few, just a handful of them. And I'd love them to be, by 100 times more, thousand times more. But unfortunately, right now, these people are very, very scarce. And the majority of people who I see, who I talk with, they are, getting by, earning their living, but they're not solving an important problem. They're not working on something like meaningful. They're not on a mission, ultimately. And I'd love to see way more people who are on a mission. You are on a mission. You are on a mission. I am on a mission.
I believe that UNIT.City is on a mission.
UNIT.City is on a mission.
Definitely, and we're trying to solve the problem. I believe Sector X is on a mission to try to help entrepreneurs becoming successful entrepreneurs, and I think we need more of this. I mean, we need to get out of this crisis with a ton of energy, a ton of willingness to solve bigger problems. We need to almost view this as, okay, and another revolution happened. My understanding of this crisis is we're stepping into a new century. It's kind of strange, but or it's century, new century. They don't work really completely with calendars. It's not because it's the beginning of January 1st, 2000 that you're in a new century. Actually, I believe that there's always a big crisis that start a shift, that makes that things are going to be different when we're going to look at them before and after. And I look actually at the First World War as a big shift. There was a before, there was an after, and after that, actually, we had a lot of new technology. Planes, cars, transportation changed, medicine changed. I mean, and economy changed, and the world changed. And I believe this is kind of where we are right now, as we are moving towards a completely new world where technology can do a lot, can provide a lot, but we don't have yet the meaning of what is it that we as humanity would like to build. And I don't think that it's something you decide, of course, but it's also part of that zoo. Do we want to be part of the zoo, or do we want to be part of a farm? And actually, I strongly believe this is where we are right now. It's, do we want to be part of a zoo or of a farm? Because both options are possible. And I don't know, and that kind of is my final thought. But personally, I want the zoo. What do you? Be your final thought, because I think we're at the end of this.
My wrap up. My thought is this: change I do believe that change takes a second to pull off. It change in your mentality. If I tell you that you're dying tomorrow, then your attitude towards everything around you will change in a second. So startup founders, entrepreneurs, people who want to do something, they can change their mind, their mentality, their attitude in a fraction of a second if they realize that this is their only and one life, and there won't be any other life out there. And they can decide right here, right now, whether they want to live this life for a purpose or whether they just want to get by and earn some money and eat burgers and travel distances. So this change might take a second. It doesn't take months or years. It takes a second. And it's that second that you decide that you want to be different, that you want to do something meaningful. And I hope that people out there who want to do something in with their life or in their lives, they can make this change and work on meaningful stuff. And UNIT.City and Sector X, you and I, we are here to help them like live their dream, and we are the tool we're a shortcut to success, a legitimate shortcut to success.
Love this. Let's end with that. Let's build something meaningful. And if tomorrow can be more meaningful, I'm in it with you. Love it. Cool.
Thanks, Dom. Thanks,
That's
man.
it. Thank you,
It was
guys.
fun. I loved it.
Quite fun. Me too. Bye.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.